Hello, it's Valon. I have no idea why I really decided to do this, but I felt like doing this. Obviously, if you're watching us for movie discussions, then clearly you want to know my political opinions. I don't know. What the heck? Why not? Um, I decided to pick this quiz because you probably know of the political compass test. That's usually the one people point to is like, oh, you should do this one and get your opinions. I don't think the political compass test is bad, but I think it's just not enough in terms of enough detail. Because again, it's a sort of it's a two-axis test, a two-dimensional quiz, so to speak, because it's testing you on sort of your economic levels and also uh, your what do you call it, social levels? I don't know. So where this it's splits over four axes, and there's 8 values. So you have basically your economic, like economic left versus economic right. You have this is more so. Do you view sort of your nation above the others, or do you view it as more we're part of, or are you more global in terms of your views? I guess nationalist versus globalist if you want to use that terminology, but I don't know. Civil. So this is more so the social aspect. Do you think social freedom is more important, or do you think there should be some, you know, more rule focused and more authoritarian in that sense? And then societal, this is more just in terms of like your values. Are you more like traditionalist, or are you more in terms of progressive, in terms of like pushing, society forward versus keeping stuck to tradition? So I think this is better in terms of like categorizing your opinions better and gives you a little bit more information. So if you just type in 8 values, you'll find it. And I don't know, I think it's helpful for people to take this to kind of get a sense of where they stand. Um, I'll just say right now, I have taken this a few times before already. So I'm only doing this more so to sort of explain myself and just sort of say this is my thought process for why I'm choosing what I'm choosing. I'm not saying like everyone has to think exactly the same as me, obviously. But the point is, you should be able to explain yourself and sort of why you think the way you do for various reasons. So anyway, let's get started. So you're going to be presented with, again, a statement, and there's going to be buttons for opinions. I'll say right now, there's a strongly agree, neutral or unsure, disagree, and strongly disagree. So I'm going to try to avoid picking the unsure neutral button as much as possible, but well, we'll see. Anyway, so oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. I mean, oppression in general is important, but especially in the United States, based on what the things are currently, yes, I do think corporations, because basically corporations are, I mean, this sounds like a simple way of putting it, but they do control the government in a large aspect in terms of campaign contributions and basically legalized bribery and stuff. So, yeah, in general, overall, theoretically, they're of equal concern. But in the US right now, yeah, corporations are more of a concern. So I'm going to say agree. It is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Strongly agree with that because we need regulation. Otherwise, people will basically just kind of do whatever they can to sort of screw people over and try to get away with it. So yeah, strongly agree. The freer the markets, the freer the people. Again, I disagree on this. Sure, to some extent, theoretically, could you have a super rigidly tight, controlled market where you don't have a choice of what to do? Sure, but that's not anywhere near the case where we are now. And yeah, so disagree. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than sure welfare for all citizens. No, in fact, I'm going to say strongly disagree. The welfare of your citizens should be the most important thing that you do. So, yeah, no, strongly disagree. Publicly funded research is more beneficial to the people than leaving it to the market. Again, like, in and of itself, is private research inherently worse than public research? No, it's not. But the whole idea of leaving it to the market, no, because the whole point of the market is that they will seek out to do things for profit, right? And a lot of research is not profitable in the short term, so they're not going to look at it. So yeah, you need publicly funded research. So yeah, I agree. Tariffs and international trade are important to encourage local production. Honestly, I'm not super familiar with I mean, I know what tariffs are, but like, I'm not super familiar with a lot of the policy specifics of tariffs in terms of like how they can be used. Um, so I don't really know. I'm gonna say unsure, partly just because I feel like I know enough about tariffs to really give a effective opinion on this one way or the other. So that's why I am going to actually say unsure about this one. Okay, so from each accrued to his ability to each accrued to his deeds. This is a statement that I've been thinking about. Like, it's like I don't know how to respond to this because here's the thing. This is basically saying, by reading it directly, it's that, hey, if someone has the ability to, produce more goods or they have more money, then they should contribute more to society. And someone who needs more things, either they are like maybe they're disabled or something or like that, then they should receive more help than someone. And on that surface, that sounds totally fine. The issue is that this is sort of like motto is not really the right word, but like it's a statement that is intrinsically linked to just to communism. And I'm not one of those people who thinks communism is like, oh my god, you mean like Stalin? No. But like I'm not communist. I don't think communism is the correct answer. I don't think it is. Not only do I think it's not really feasible, but even if you could do it, I don't think it's actually would really be the best solution. So it's one of those things where it's like this statement by itself is like I agree with, but like the connotation with communism, I don't agree with. So because of that, I don't know. I know for sometimes when I've done this before, I've clicked agree. Sometimes I click disagree. I'm just going to click unsure. I don't know how to respond to that. It would be best if social programs were abolished if you're private charity. Strongly disagree. No. You cannot leave it up to just, people thinking, oh, I decide to help someone. No, you need to have a system in place that is always there to help for people. It can't just be on the whims of private charity. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. Strongly agree. The rich do not pay nearly enough in taxes. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. So I'm in kind of an awkward position because, I have not directly inherited money, but my mom has directly inherited a lot of money, and I would not be in the house I am in right now if she did not inherit that money. But is it a legitimate form of wealth? No, it's not really. Do I think that there should be no inheritance whatsoever? No, I don't think that. But do I think there should be pretty strong inheritance taxes, especially on millions or billions of inheritance? Absolutely, that should be taxed crazily. There should absolutely be an inheritance wealth tax. To a large percent. So I'm going to say disagree, even though I benefit from it. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. Yes, I agree with that. I think things that people need to function in a society should largely be free at the point of service, which is the idea of a publicly owned utility. So, yes. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. It can be, but especially given the normal circumstances, I'm going to say no, disagree. Those with the greater ability to pay should receive better healthcare. Here, the immediate answer I would say is no, that everyone should receive high quality healthcare. But it sort of depends on what you define as healthcare in terms of elective procedures, right? And so, for example, should I think every single person should be able to get plastic surgery? No, because that's not necessary to live, right? So in that sense, do I think that if you have the ability to pay more, do you have access to receive better healthcare because you can get plastic surgery? I mean, it's sort of does that fall under the category of better healthcare? You know what I mean? So I don't really know how to phrase this. I don't have an issue with rich people getting plastic surgery, but I do have an issue of things that, again, inhibit someone's ability to function in society being locked off by profit, right? That, or how much money you have. That's my problem. So I don't know. I'm gonna say disagree, but I could see myself arguing that for neutral. I don't know. I'm gonna say disagree. Quality education is a right to all people. Yeah, agree for sure. There's not really much to talk about there. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. Okay, again, this is very much a communism statement. I don't think it has to. I do think there should be more democracy in the workplace in terms of unions and worker-owned co-ops. But I don't think it has to. So should belong. The phrase of should. There should be more of it, but do I think that should be the primary thing? I don't know. So I guess I'll say unsure. The United Nations should be abolished. No, it should be reformed for sure, but no, it absolutely should not be abolished. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. Okay, see, again, this is one of those things where it's well, what is it? Theoretically, there's one answer, but also in terms of what's going on right now, there's another answer, right? Yeah, if someone does something to us, we, should have ability to strike back, right? Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Yeah, we had the right to attack them back. That's how that works, right? But Is there anything right now going on that I would say we need direct military action against? No, there isn't. There is nothing right now that is like posing an imminent threat to us. Nothing. Um, in the sense that we need to, employ the military now. That's not a thing. Um, so again, this idea of often necessary. No, I'm going to say disagree because it's not often necessary, and people often use this excuse of like, oh, we need to protect ourselves to therefore send people to die in the Middle East for no good reason. So I'm going to say disagree. I support regional unions such as the European Union. Again, this is sort of complicated because it's like in theory yes, but like in the EU is a mixed bag. There's good things about the EU, there's bad things about the EU. I definitely support in general just more regional cooperation. So I guess I'll say agree. This agree is kind of more closer to neutral than to strongly agree, but I will say agree. It is important to maintain our national sovereignty. I mean, again, this is sort of like it's sort of like what is the state? What's on the page in front of me versus like what context is this usually set in? So, do I think that like it's important that the United States should be like a certain political entity that is separate from other entities? Sure, yeah. I don't think we should get rid of the country that is the United States, but like oftentimes people use this framing to then say like, oh, therefore like we have to get rid of immigrants, which is like no, right? I don't agree with that at all. That's not how this works. So I'm going to say unsure because again, I'm kind of. It's like I agree in theory, but how this statement is used and by who uses this most of the time, I disagree with them. So I'm going to say neutral. A united world government would be beneficial to mankind. I don't know because we don't really have one. I mean, some people think the UN is like that, but it's really not. So again, do I think the UN should be kind of retooled? Should have given some maybe more power here and there? Do I think international law should be enforced more, including on the United States? Yes. Do I think that every country should be like governed the same? No. Though I do think there should be some like international law principles that should be true in all countries. So again, it's how you frame it. And again, it's the fact that there is not a united world government that I would say that exists. It's sort of like, well, theoretically you could make one that works, but is that one that is ever actually going to happen? I don't know. So again, I'm going to say I don't know, which again, I don't like putting I don't know for these answers, but I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it another way. It is more important to retain peaceful relations than to further our strength. Yes, I agree with that. Wars do not need to be justified to other countries. No, you need to have a reason. You need to be able to explain yourself as to what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, yeah, no, disagree. Military spending is a waste of money. Okay, again, in theory, no, right? Like, should you spend $0 on the military? No, that's ridiculous. But the amount of money that we spend in the United States is absurd with the military, and people never even question it, like, ever. So, I'll say agree slightly, because again, we should have some money in the military, obviously. But, like, we spend so much on the military that could be used for so many other things. So, yeah. International aid is a waste of money. Again, we spend very little international aid. And while I do think that like we should focus on ourselves first before we start, pouring money to other places, it's not a waste of money. So I'm gonna say disagree. My nation is great. Again, there's good things about the U.S. There are bad things about the U.S. So that immediately puts this at like a neutral. Again, compared to most other countries in the world, how is the U.S.? Probably better than most, right? And I'm talking like all countries, not just like, what we think of as developed countries, right? I'd rather live in the U.S. than, Somalia, right? But the people who use this phrasing, again, I don't agree with, because people use this to sort of give this sort of, American exceptionalism and this idea that we're somehow like inherently superior and this kind of garbage. So I don't like that at all. So, and again, here's the thing. Great is sort of the specific thing that's sort of the problem from my standpoint, because it's like, it can be good, but is it great? I think I'm actually going to put disagree. And again, I could really see myself putting neutral for this, but like, because of the context of how this phrase is used a lot, and again, just because I'm saying I don't agree that it's great, that doesn't mean that I think the U.S. is like a garbage heap fire that's completely irredeemable. No, I'm not saying that at all. I just do I think it is great. Great is some connotation to it. So yeah, I'm gonna say disagree on it's great. Research should be conducted on an international scale. Yeah, sure. I mean, there's no reason not to. So yeah. Government should be accountable to the international community. Yes, definitely. Again, this is the whole thing about international law. The U.S. does a bunch of stuff that, like, basically that does violate international law. But like don't feel any punishment for it, which we should. So yeah, agree. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. This is hard because, in principle, I'm against violence in terms of any sort of protest or anything like that. Um, However, there's two things to this. On the one hand, if the state, so think like the cops, start violence first, then you have the right to protect yourself, right? So if the cops start beating you, then yeah, like you should be able to defend yourself. um, and then on the other hand, some people would argue that like an authoritarian state that is being protested against, the fact that they are an authoritarian state, that's basically saying they already do state-sanctioned violence already, so you're therefore inherently defending yourself, even if they're not explicitly attacking you. I don't know if I agree with that. So this is another one where I'm kind of like not 100% sure what to say. Um, I'm going to say agreed. I think I am going to say agreed, but it's this is very much like a very open to the situation and up to what's going on. So don't think I'm one of those people who's like, oh my god, BLM are so violent and like they can't just sit there and yeah, listen to the cops. They'll do I'm not that kind of person at all. But like I do think you definitely should not lead with violence. That's definitely 100% true. So I will say agree, I guess. My religious values should be spread as much as possible. I mean, I'm not religious. So, I should the fact that I'm not religious be spread as much as possible? Well, again, like, well, do I think that like, you know, nobody should be religious? No, I don't think that. Do I think that honestly more people should probably be non-religious? Yeah, kinda. I mean, I think that like there's a lot of people who just sort of like I don't know, take the default position to be like, I guess I'm religious, right? And I think that shouldn't really be a thing. Again, if you honestly believe and you have an issue, that's fine. I really have no issue with that whatsoever in terms of just your inherent belief. If you try to impose that belief on other people for like no good reason and or use it to push like, anti-science stuff or try to use it to, pass laws that are not, shouldn't be passed, then that's a problem, right? But I don't know. Like again, the fact that I'm not religious is sort of the problem. And again, I'm not definitely not this person who's like, oh, I have to convert everyone to being non-religious. Like, no, I'm not that at all. So I guess I'll say disagree, but it's kind of weird to say again for someone who's not religious. So I'll say disagree. Our nation's values should be spread as much as possible. Again, this is one of those things where it's like, well, some of our values are good and some of them are bad, right? Do I think overall the sense of democracy should be, should more countries should be democratic? Yes. Do I think more countries should have, freedom of speech and freedom of the press and freedom of assembly? Yes. Um, do I think other countries should have gigantic militaries and crony capitalism and guns everywhere? No. So, and also, people use this framework as sort of a justification of like military intervention, right? They're like, oh, we're bringing democracy to them. You know what I mean? That whole kind of thing. So, I'm going to say disagree. Also because also another thing about it is that a lot of other countries they actually do have at least some of our values already, right? Like democracy is not inherently American, right? So I'm going to say disagree. It is very important to maintain law and order. Again, like what does this mean, right? Like yeah, we shouldn't have lawlessness running around. We shouldn't, be like anarchy. That should be a thing. But at the same time, people who always talk about law and order, they use it to just, crack down on any sort of dissent whatsoever and use it as justification for a bunch of atrocity. So, and also, okay, it's very important, right? That's the key. This whole thing is very important. Some people are going to call me some, crazy Antifa anarcho-communist or whatever by saying this, but I'm going to say disagree. The general populace makes poor decisions. They can be manipulated to make poor decisions. If you actually poll people on the issues, oftentimes they actually have fairly reasonable opinions in like a lot of stuff that makes sense. It's just that people can be swayed through media or talking points or strongmen or stuff like that. So I'm gonna say disagree. Gonna say disagree, but there's a lot of caveats to this statement. Physician-assisted suicide should be illegal. Sure, it's your body. I don't care. Do what you want with it. The sacrifice of some little civil liberties is necessary to protect us from acts of terrorism. Again, it's like some, sure. Like, do I think that everyone should have the civil liberty to own an AK, like an AK-47? No, I don't think so. Okay, because that is something that I think is reasonable. And again, or go even further, if you don't want to think about it in terms of guns, do I think everyone should have the liberty to own like a tank? No, because there are some acts of safety involved with that. But obviously, in the US, there's been a huge push of like, we have to stop terrorism, so therefore we have to, spy on people and all this other ridiculous stuff that's not okay. So, I'm going to say disagree just because of how this has been used in more recent times and what this means in that sense. But again, theoretically, I don't necessarily disagree, but practically, I do disagree now. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. No, it's really not to the degree that it is. No, I'm gonna say no. The very existence of the state is a threat to our liberty. No. I think the idea of this is sort of, again, it's sort of like a anarchist kind of mindset of like, the fact that there is a hierarchy, there is some sort of power structure in place. That means it's inherently somewhat authoritarian. I mean, I guess, like, again, conceptually, sure, I guess that's true, but like that's not like a bad thing inherently, right? So no, disagree. Regardless of political opinions, it is important to side with your country. Yeah, so this I'm pretty sure means that, like, oh, it's the whole, oh, America's great and we always make the best decisions, and it's like, no, disagree. Make up your own damn mind. All authority. Okay, this question is actually kind of hard because, like, political authority should absolutely be questioned, right? Does that mean you basically use it to sort of say, like, disagree with like everybody and say, like, well, I'm going to question literally everything anyone ever says? Like, no, but I do think some people take it too far. And then also, especially people that use this, say, like, oh, I'm going to question, like, doctors and scientists. And it's like, well, then, I mean, should you have some skepticism for any sort of claim? Yes, but should you have so much skepticism that, like, you literally cannot be convinced of anything? No. So, I'm going to say, this is a soft agree. Like, you should have sort of a bit of a hesitancy, especially for political authority. But at the same time, if there is evidence, accept the evidence and don't on purpose become a contrarian for no reason. So a hierarchical state is best. Again, this is an idea of, like, how you structure your government in terms of like top down versus bottom up. Again, some people, they don't think there should be any hierarchy in a political system. I don't agree with that. Is best though? I don't know if it's best. And I do think a lot of systems that we have, like, should be less hierarchical, but not have no hierarchy. So I'm going to say unsure about this, actually. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion, even if it is wrong. I don't know. Because again, it's like, no, I think the government should do what is best for its citizens. Now, the thing is, though, well, how do you know what's best for the citizens? I would say usually you can figure that by data and like actual analysis and seeing what other countries have done and kind of comparing that sort of information. So I think there is a right and wrong answer to a lot of political opinions, for example, but not all of them. So then it's like, how does this work, right? I hate clicking unsure, but I think I'm gonna have to click unsure again. The stronger the leadership, the better. No, not inherently. Again, look, power is power, right? So, like, there could be, you can use power for good and use it effectively, or you can use it for bad. And granted, most people use it for bad, and it's so. I'm going to say disagree. Democracy is more than a decision-making process. I guess, like, we don't really know what this means, to be honest. Yeah, it is more. I don't know. Okay. Environmental regulations are essential. Yes, agree, for sure. A better world will come from automation, science, and technology. the thing is, purely from automation science technology, yes, but in terms of like the policies and economics that will kind of branch out from this, that's potentially problematic, right? For example, automation should be good because it should be able to free people from a lot of menial labor. It should, you know, uh, be able to get people away from being so tied in with work life, all that kind of stuff. But people will probably use it to just give workers even less rights and give them even lower wages. So I don't know. And again, also it's like what's our time scale here, right? Are we talking decades or centuries? That's an iffy question. So I'm going to say agree, but I'm a little hesitant on this. Children should be educated in religious or traditional values. I mean, in the sense of like here is some content for you in terms of education, I guess, but in terms of like this is how you should live your life, no, you should not force any sort of this onto like your children. You can teach them about it, and again, from like a academic perspective, but no, disagree. Traditions are no value of their own. Yeah, again, of their own, sure. I mean, some traditions are done to because of something that is good, in which case, fine. But like, tradition by itself, no. And again, people can attach meaning to it, right? Can attach value to it, but by itself, no. I agree with this actually. Religion should play a role in government. No. In fact, I must say strongly disagree because people are of different religions, and therefore you cannot have a government based on a religion. And any sort of theocracy is, it's inherently discriminatory. Churches should be taxed the same way as other institutions are taxed. Strongly agree. The fact that they're not taxed is honestly really screwed up. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. I mean, yes, it is. Like, there's no way to argue against this at this point. So, unless you're just a bad faith actor. But yeah, strongly agree. It is important that we work as a united world to combat climate change. Yes. I mean, yeah. Well, yeah. There's no caveat to that. Yes, this is true. So, yeah. Do I do strong? Yeah, sure, fine. Okay. Society was better many years ago than it is now. No. No. I mean, for some people, I guess. Maybe. But overall, no. Not really. Especially the fact that it's like many years ago, right? For example, was it better, like, was it better in like the 50s and 60s for some people? Yeah, it was. But overall, especially for, minorities and stuff, I'm going to say disagree. It is important that we maintain the traditions of our past. No, it's not really. Again, it depends on the tradition, right? Is there actually benefit for something, or is it just, are we doing this because we're doing this, right? So I'm going to say disagree. It is important that we think in long term beyond our lifespans. Yeah, absolutely. Strongly agree. We're way too caught up in terms of like, what's affecting me right now? So yeah. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. Yeah, I guess. I mean, if you have a culture if your culture says do this thing that makes no sense of doing it, then yeah, stop. Why are you doing it? So I guess agree. Drug use should be legalized and decriminalized. Yes. I don't use drugs. I mean, I drink sometimes, but not really. But it has been shown that decriminalizing drugs. Well, first of all, you're hurting yourself, if anything. So it's not like you're hurting other people really directly through drug use. And it should be treated more as a health issue and not a criminal issue. So yeah, I'll even strongly agree with that. Same-sex marriage should be legal. I strongly agree. No cultures are superior to others. Okay, this one's hard because I know what they're getting at. They're basically saying like, are you like a supremacist, right? Which like, no, I'm not. But like, here's the thing: every culture has some good things and some bad things. But some cultures have more good things than others. Some cultures have more bad things than others, right? For example, and again, this is not a comment on the people, but like the actual culture itself. For example, there are cultures that believe in female genital mutilation. I'm sorry, you are inherently worse than a culture that does not believe in that, okay? And there are others that are, more theocratic or more authoritarian or, more fundamentalist. And like, no, I don't think that. I think your cultures are worse than in that sense. Do I think that you as a person are worse, or that like you are, because you're born into a culture like that therefore you are guaranteed to be terrible? No, I don't think that at all. And again, this is coming from, and I'm not saying that, in America's culture is so great. No, we absolutely have big problems. There are absolutely cultures that are better than ours. So I'm going to say disagree, even though, probably This is not. I'm not the person who you would think would be saying that. But anyway, that's my argument. Sex outside of marriage is immoral. No, it's not. Who cares? If we accept migrants at all, it is important they assimilate into our culture. Again, this is sort of a double edged thing where it's like, should they at least have some connection to our own culture? Sure, but like, do they have to completely conform to like the American way? Honestly, no, I don't really care. Like, honestly, I really don't care. Like, it kind of sucks for them sometimes, especially if like they don't learn English. Then that kind of makes their life harder. But like, that's their decision. Like, if they really want to not learn English, then okay, fine, I guess. I mean, that's on you. So, I guess disagree? I don't know. I don't really have very strong opinions on this, to be honest. I sort of feel like it's up to them. So, eh. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases. Disagree. It's a decision of the mother, or would be mother, or would not be mother, because they go through with it. Yeah. Gun ownership should be prohibited for those that have valid reason. Strongly agree. This is something that this is probably my least popular overall opinion. I am very anti-gun. I know the whole Second Amendment thing. Honestly, I think the Second Amendment should be abolished. I do not think people have the right to own a gun. I don't think that should be the case. Should people still be able to get them? Sure, because you need a valid reason and like a license and stuff, just like how you need like a valid license to drive a car. You do not have the right to a car. You can still get a car, right? But same thing, I don't think people have a right to a gun. So I'm going to say strongly agree. And I know my stance on gun control is very pretty extreme compared to most people, even most like left people. But that's how I feel about it. If I could get rid of pretty much every single gun in the country, I would. I know it's not feasible, but and so I wouldn't actively push for it. But like if I had a magic wand, I would do it. I support single payer. Yes, I do. It's just it is the best system. It is. It costs the least. It gives the best care to the most people, and that's proven statistically based on data of other countries. So yeah, I agree. Prostitution should be illegal. I don't care what you do. If you want to sell your body, go sell your body. That's not my business. So strongly disagree. Maintaining family values is essential. No, I mean again, like the family values is a code word for like traditionalist, fundamentalist religious beliefs. So no, in fact, I'm gonna say strongly disagree. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. I mean, at all costs, sure. I guess so. I mean, like you said, like the nuclear bomb is sort of an example of that, where at all costs is dangerous. But like, at the same time, I do think more people sort of think in the opposite direction, where they're like, to abandon our traditions is bad, or also that like, oh, this thing, it's dangerous and scary and new. Like, so I'm going to say agree, but this is a soft agree. It's the more so at all costs at the element of it where I'm going to say agree. Genetic modification is a force of good even on humans. I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to it. I'm not one of those people who think like this should never be a thing. You should shut it down. But this is such a giant can of worms ethically and societally that I don't even know my opinion on this at the moment. So I'm going to say unsure. We should open our borders to immigration. I don't. Should we have 100% open borders? Literally anyone can come across no matter what. No, I don't think so. I don't think someone who is like a full on like felon or war criminal or someone like that should they come over? No, I don't. But do I think that I think we are way too strict about it right now. Even under liberal presidents or whatever, I think it's largely been too strict. So I think we should open up more, but do I think we should be 100% open? No. So I don't know. I guess. And also, another thing, we should actually work to improve their countries of origin. We can do that, okay? And the Marshall Plan was a good example of that. So we should do that. Which would also have less people would come here if their homes were already pretty good. So, if that's what you're worried about, well, then help those countries. So I'm going to say neutral, because again, I don't, yeah. Government should be as concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens. Um, I do think the government of a country should ultimately serve that country, but I think there are some people that think like, oh, they're foreigners, we shouldn't care at all. It's like, no, that's not true. I'm gonna say neutral. I don't know. Neutral. All people, regardless of factors like cultural and sexuality, should be treated equally. Well, okay. In terms of anything that you have no control over, yes, you should be treated equally. Okay, so sex, race, sexuality, gender expression, all that kind of stuff that like, which is baked into your DNA. That's not, you have no control over that. So in that sense, yes, it should be treated equally. Um, in terms of like under the law, by the way, then yeah. But like honestly, people who are like, oh well, you can't criticize me because like my opinion is just cultural, and it's like you have a freaking choice about your opinion, right? So if you have a crappy opinion, I'm gonna call you out on it because that's not something that you have. You have control over your opinion. So I don't care if it's cultural. Like, no, it's your opinion, and your opinion sucks. So like, I'm gonna call you out on that. But in terms of like the law, I guess so. Then yeah, I will say yes, I agree. But anyway. It is important that we further my group's goals above all others. I mean, again, this definitely comes off as like sort of supremacist language about, improve the white race over anyone else, right? Yeah, disagree. Okay. And yep, seems we get basically what I expected me to get. So, um, economically socialist. Yep, that's true. I am economically socialist. I'm definitely not economically communist. I'm not all the way over there, but I am some very decently in socialist territory. Definitely more for sort of a peaceful view, and also more sort of international cooperation than we have. But also, I'm not all the way towards like one world government kind of scenario. Um, Definitely civil liberties, sort of so very liberal in that sense. I'm basically in terms of what you do socially and just like your civil liberties. Again, I'm very much like as long as you're not hurting anyone else, just live your own life. I don't care. Um, And then societal, okay, very progressive. So yeah, definitely. So then yeah, libertarian socialist, which sounds like an oxymoron at first, but again, the libertarian part of it is in terms of living your life. In terms of social aspects, yeah, I think you should just kind of do whatever you want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. And then socialist in terms of like my economic policy. So yeah, that actually does sort of, I think that does work. And this is basically what's happened before, being, well, I guess 80, 70, 70, 80, roughly. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, again, you can have different opinions from me. That's totally valid. Take this as on your own, see what you can come up with, and yeah, see what you get. And maybe you'll surprise yourself to see what you get. I don't know. Anyway, I just want to throw this up here for no particular reason, but here it is. So that's that. Monday will be our next movie review on Coco, I believe. Bit of a change from this, but whatever. So anyway, see you then. Bye bye.